YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back, and after day 2 of the NFL Combine, we got some winners, losers who I was impressed with. Got a lot of honorable mentions, but we're going to have slides specifically for the biggest winners. So a lot to get to between the tight ends, the quarterbacks, the receivers here. Right before we get into it, check out our Twitter and Instagram, links in the description. Constantly talking about the Combine on our Twitter, so that's a must follow. So please give us a follow there. It'll be much appreciated. But let's get on to the tight ends. I only have 2 big winners, and I have a few honorable mentions. The biggest winner, it's pretty obvious for the tight ends, is Noah Fant, the tight end from Iowa. 6'4", 249. 40 time was 4.51, which is ridiculous for that size of a tight end. Broad jump 127, vertical 39.5. So he pretty much at the top. He was at the top for the 40. Pretty close to the top for the broad jump and the vertical, so he's an athletic freak. Before, I kind of thought of him as a top 50 player. You know, I was safe calling him a top 50 player. Now, I don't think he gets out of the first round now. You see what teams want to do with tight ends these days. You know, he reminds me a little of Trey Burton, a little more athletic. I think he's going to be have a better career than Trey Burton. And, you know, teams were throwing money at Burton last offseason. He got a lot of money. So he's definitely a weapon. Can use him in multiple different ways. So teams are constantly looking for this type of tight end, and here's one sitting in the draft here that you can grab in the first round. So will he go top 20? It's a good question. I don't know if he goes top 20. He possibly could go around there, but I feel safe saying he's going to go top 32 after a great combine performance. And the other big winner was Foster Moreau from LSU, 6'4", 253, so heavier tight end, and he runs a 4.66. Not the most, not the flashiest time, but a good number for him. But his shuttle, 20-yard shuttle, was 4.11, and that's very impressive. 4.11 on the 20-yard shuttle. That's what you expect from receivers sometimes. So, and then the vertical was 36.5. Athletic tight end here. Before, he wasn't really talked about that much, kind of like a round 7 guy, possibly even undrafted free agent. Now I think teams will want to take a chance on this guy. I think he could possibly show up in round 5 and be taken off the board in round 5. So very impressive day from him. I have quite a few honorable mentions from the tight ends, 4 of them actually. Josh Oliver from San Jose State, another guy that was kind of known as a later round guy. He's pretty big size, pretty built guy, and very athletic too. So, definitely a winner of the tight end class here. He had a nice one-handed catch on the drills too. TJ Hawkinson, wasn't a huge winner, but does get an honorable mentions because he had a good day. Really good in the drills, really good numbers for his size. But he's clear-cut number 1 tight end. Just nothing really wowed. It's kind of what we expected from him. Dawson Knox from Ole Miss. I wish he would have ran, but from a recent injury, he couldn't run. But he looked really good in the drills. Probably the best of the group in the drills. Real smooth, very good job catching the ball. So I wish he would have ran the 40, but he was still impressive. And then Alize Mack, for his size, I thought was very smooth too. Solid numbers for him for being the size that he is. Now we're on to the quarterbacks, and I have only one big winner from the quarterbacks because, everyone. I also don't have a loser at the end. We'll go over some losers of the day, which I'm not really a fan of doing, but at the end we'll do all the losers from the combine. But didn't have any quarterback losers, but I only had one big winner and a couple honorable mentions because they kind of performed how we thought they would, But the big winner was Jarrett Stidham. I thought he threw the best out of all of the quarterbacks on the deep ball drills. He was excellent. When you watch him on tape, he kind of overthrew a lot at Auburn, but he's a guy that teams are going to want to work with him. They can fix that. They can figure it out. He comes in at 6'2", 218. His testing numbers weren't the greatest. 4.81 is very good for him. 31 vertical, very good for him. The main reason he's on here is I thought he threw very, very well. Before, I thought he was like a round 4 guy. Now I think there's still a chance he goes round 3, but I think there's a team out there that takes a chance on him on round 2. There's probably teams out there that have him in their top maybe 4 quarterbacks. I think they're going to want to work with him. He has maybe one of the higher upsides in this class, maybe minus, the clear-cut top guys. But definitely had a great day throwing. Stock up for him. Guy with a lot of potential. So the QB honorable mentions, Ryan Finley. I thought he did a good job throwing the ball. He was a little more athletic in the testing than I thought he would be. Tyree Jackson. I wish he could have thrown a little better. He was kind of inconsistent. One throw was just outstanding. Then he was kind of off target. but he ran really well for being 6'7". He's very, very athletic. You know, they were talking about how 6'6" is the cutoff. 6'7" is almost too big. But then when you have a guy that's just as athletic at 6'7", I think it's a different story. So I think he's going to start rising up boards. And then Drew Lock, I thought was, you know, it didn't show me anything new. You know, I was pretty high on Drew Lock already. I thought he was pretty consistent, throwing accurate. 4.70 is a good time for him, I think. I'm good with that. So all three of these guys were very good. You know, didn't really wow me like kind of Stidham kind of did. But in terms of where they'd be drafted, I think Finley goes round 2 or 3. Jackson, you know, I think teams are going to be split on him. I think he can go possibly around 3, but it's hard to say. He's at a big range, 3 to 5, I'd say. And then Drew Lock should be a lock in the first round. But on to the receivers. Quite a few of them had big days, so I'm going to have quite a few with as big winners and then quite a few as honorable mentions. You know, I just kind of had to stop at one point. I couldn't have too many of the big winners. I could have kept going all day. This receiver class is ridiculous. You know, every category. They're really good at every category. You know, there's speed, there's strength, everything. So we'll start with A.J. Brown. I thought out of all the receivers, he probably was the most impressive to me on the field, in the drills, every single drill. It was just right. You know, he was smooth, catch the ball really well. Just looked like a guy that you just don't want to cover. You know, really, really fast out of his breaks. You know, if you look at him running the drills and looking on tape, you know, it looked like he run in the 4.3s, but he still ran fast enough in the 4.49 range right there. The broad jump was 120, vertical 36.5. All really good numbers. Nothing that jumps out big time, but just really the drills. He was super smooth in the drills. Before I'd say top 40, you know, early second round at the latest. Now I think he's a lock in the first round, which he should be, in my opinion, because he can play in the slot, can play outside. You know, I think he's a safe pick. You know what you're going to get from him, and he has potential too. So I think a team in the first round has to take him. You know, he's a definite day one weapon. Moving on, next guy, Miles Boykin, wide receiver from Notre Dame, a guy that I was really surprised with. He's 6'4", 220. You got to keep that in mind. He's 6'4", and just a surprising 4.42 out of him. I was just beyond shocked with that because I watch every single Notre Dame game, and all year I'm just saying how good he is. But you know, I think once he gets to the combine, the 40 time's not going to be good, and that's going to, you know, drop him a little bit. And it's complete opposite here. He runs a 4.42, and now you might ask, why is it on tape? Why does it look like he's a little slower? You know, maybe he's just good at testing. You know, maybe he was just ready for this moment. But to me, he looked like he lost some weight. He's thin. He's pretty cut too. So I think he got in shape, got ready for this. Yeah, he doesn't look as wide to me, but it worked in his favor because not only the 40 time, the broad jump was 140, which was ridiculous. The vertical jump was 43.5. So this guy was just a freak today in every category. You know, I thought he was going to be a late round guy, and that's mainly because of his speed. You know, he has the routes, definitely has the hands, and now I think teams are going to be split on wide receivers. They're going to be, you know, everyone's board's going to be a lot different. That's why I can't wait to see how they come out the board. But I think just because, you know, how good he is with his routes and how he can catch and these freakish numbers, I think a team could take a chance in round 3. I think round 4 is also realistic, but I think one team's bound to take a chance there. You know, we've seen the improvement here, so he really, really surprised me, and it's a guy that I saw every snap of his game this year. So, but what we did know for sure was he was a heck of a football player already. We were just kind of worried about that speed, and he's improved on that. HAKEEM BUTLER is another one, and this was a guy that I was looking forward to most in the whole combine for a 40-yard dash because we know how big he is. He's 6'5", he's 227, biggest wingspan in NFL history, which is ridiculous. But then what's his 40 time? You know, sometimes he looks a little slow on tape, but I think he's more, you know, fast and quick, and then he comes out and runs a 4.48. And that's just ridiculous for how big he is, how lanky he is. So he does have those strides to help him. But 4.48, you know, I would have been good if he would have ran a 4.58. That would have been good for him. So he runs a 4.48, which is super impressive. Broad jump 128, vertical 36, impressive numbers. I thought he was a top 50 player before, and I think there's got to be a team that just falls in love with his size and how he's able to move with that size. You know, it's rare. You do not see this. I can't tell you the last time we've seen it. So a team in the first round will take him. I'm very confident on that. You know, there has to be, you know, a team like the Raiders with 3 picks. It's the first team that comes to my mind. You know, there's quite a few other teams that can take him. I'm not saying he's going to go to the Raiders, but I think a team like that, I think, takes a chance. Like, you don't see a guy like this all the time, and that 40 time is really the main reason he's up here, but you got to keep in mind how big he is and that wingspan that he has. Very impressive. Another one, Parris Campbell. He kind of did what we expected him to do, but, across the board, great numbers. The wide receiver from Ohio State, 6 foot, 205. Maybe a little heavier than we expected too. And with that weight, he's able to run a 4.31, ridiculous speed there. We knew in the 4.3s, 4.31, maybe a little better than what I thought. Broad jump 135, vertical 40, all insane numbers. I thought he was going to be a very early round 3 guy before. Now I think he'll be a round 2 guy. So it doesn't bump up too much, but definitely an athletic guy. Somebody will like to take him in round 2 because it's kind of what we knew about him already, but it just makes you feel safer when you take him. You got, especially in today's NFL, the athletic guys are winning more and more, faster offenses. So somebody will definitely like Parris Campbell. Some people saying maybe he slides in the late first. It wouldn't completely shock me, but I'm feeling more comfortable with the second round there. Next up is DK Metcalf, an obvious one. Most people's number 1 wide receiver from Ole Miss, 6'3", 228. So he's 6'3", and he weighs 228 pounds, and he runs a 4.33. I knew he was going to test extremely well here. I did not think he was going to run a 4.33. I thought there was some rumors about that, and then, people saying, yeah, it's BS. He's going to run closer to 4.5. I was kind of thinking in the middle of those two, but 4.33 is just absolutely ridiculous for his size. Broad jump 134, vertical 40.5, all ridiculous numbers. And you hear all the coaches and GMs up in the stands, they got their stopwatches. They're talking to each other. As soon as he ran that, I heard that all the coaches just looked at each other, just confused on how he's able to do that. So obviously they got a very good time for him too. So before I thought he wouldn't get past pick 17, which is the Browns. I think he'd be too good to pass on for the Browns. That was my thought. So I thought he would easily go within the top 17. And now I'd say the latest he goes is the Bills pick at 9. I don't think they let him go. So I think he possibly can go top 5 even. You just don't see – there's a lot of receivers like this that you just don't see every day, every draft. You just don't see them. And for them, receivers in the past, there's been a lot of busts in the first round. But for these guys are different. Like if these guys are busts, somebody's doing something wrong. One of these coaches, either they're getting hurt or the coaches are doing something wrong because these guys are just different. And there's a lot of them. This I've said it before too. This might be one of the better, maybe the best receiver class of all time because it's absolutely ridiculous. And then one more before the honorable mentions. I know some of the guys in the honorable mentions are going to feel like they're big winners too, and I would agree. I just had to stop somewhere, Manuel Hall, the receiver from Missouri, 6'2", 200. You don't even realize he's that tall too, 6'2". When watching him, he doesn't even seem like he's that tall, but good size there. He runs a 4.39. Broad jumps 141, vertical 43.5, all insane numbers. And being 6'2", that's kind of like your prototype receiver these days, 6'2", 200. I thought he was more of a round 4 guy before, and now after, I think because that size, that's about the right size teams are looking for him because the freakish testing there, I think somebody can take in round 2. Round 3 is not out of the question either. I think round 2 to 3 is what we'll say. It's right there with Parris Campbell, the same style player, same numbers. I think there's going to be teams that will have Emmanuel Hall ahead of Parris Campbell, and there's teams that are going to have Campbell ahead of Hall. So, and I think most people would probably tell you majority of teams will have Parris Campbell. I bet you it's closer to a 50-50 split. So we'll see. My money's on Campbell going before Hall, but it's going to be close to a 50-50 split between teams. I think it's going to be very interesting to see. Well, not only where Hall goes, a lot of these receivers because there's so many good ones. How are teams going to rank them? Some teams are looking for guys that can play in the slot, outside, both. So it's going to be interesting. Definitely going to be interesting. A lot of honorable mentions here. Terry McLaurin from Ohio State, really it was only the 40 that really, I guess it wowed me because I didn't expect him to run in the 4.3s. I thought he was going to be a 4.4 guy. So that really wowed me. But other than that, nothing else to put him in to get his own slide here. But very good day for him. Andy Isabella. Apparently, the NFL Network clock was wrong. They clocked him in at 4.56 and 4.46. That was wrong. It started earlier. So he ran a 4.31, one of the fastest ones of the day. He was solid in the drills, just really the 40 is what puts him in here. McCole Hardman, same situation, one of the better 40s of the day. That gets him an honorable mention here. Deebo Samuel, I kind of was as expected. Didn't wow me because I knew what was going to come from him. He had a good, I believe it was 4.49. That's a very good time for him. And he was very, very smooth in the drills. It's just kind of what we expected. Darius Slayton from Auburn, tested extremely well. Every single test, extremely well. Jazz Ferguson for being, a taller guy, 6'4", 6'5", running a 4.45 is just ridiculous. A good vertical too. Originally was at LSU, got kicked out, went to Northwestern State. So we know he has the talent. Can he stay, out of trouble off the field? He was at the combine. We saw guys that he had even slight concerns weren't at the combine, so I think he's good to go. Definitely could be a steal mid-round, maybe sneaks up to the third. Gary Jennings from West Virginia, I thought he was just a balanced receiver. That's why I thought he was, better than a balanced receiver in terms of, I thought he was going to run 4.5s. Nothing was going to wow. I thought he was going to do everything, right, basically. But he kind of stood out in the testing, ran in the 4.4s. Definitely a solid receiver. There's a lot of them. So, yeah, Gary Jennings, I think, could go round 4, round 5 at the latest. Jazz Ferguson, same situation. Darius Slayton, maybe a round 5 guy. Deebo Samuel, I think, could potentially go in round 1, but most likely round 2. McCole Hardman, I think, potentially can go round 2, but he's got a big range. Everyone's split on him, Hardman. I think he's got that 2 to 4 range. Isabella, pretty much got a big range, too. I think it could be 3 to 5. I'm thinking 4. And Terry McLaurin, I was thinking 4 or 5 before. Now he might have moved himself up to 3, so we'll see. The receivers are impossible to predict because there's so many of them. There's a long list even after this that did pretty well. I'm not a big fan of talking about the losers of the combine, but guys that I guess disappointed me a little bit, but they definitely could still be very good in the pros. It's just based off the combine. Caden Smith from Stanford, he didn't really impress me too much. He's closer to the top for the tight ends because of his hands, and he dropped a couple balls even today. Well, it didn't really test all that well, but still can be a very good tight end in the NFL, no doubt about that. Same with Isaac Nauta. Didn't test too well. It wasn't too impressive in the drills. A little better than Smith in the drills, I thought, but a guy that we expected a little better from. Zach Gentry is really a guy from Michigan that a guy that I didn't like before and still don't really like. He's super tall. I thought he should have went back to Michigan. A lot of drops, just he's too tall for his own good. That's kind of what it looks like. He can't really carry his height, it almost seems, and I thought that during the year or two. Calvin Harmon, not worried about his talents. I still like Calvin Harmon, but he didn't really test extremely well. Thought the vertical could have been a little better too. He'll be okay, though. He's going to be good in the pros. Before he was kind of borderline late 1, early 2 for me, and I think the same for teams too. I think teams out there were pretty much the same thing, but I think they'll be a little safer in early round 2, so not much of a hit there. He's still an excellent wide receiver. Riley Ridley, a guy that I like on tape, starting to like a lot more and more. Didn't really wow. He was okay in the drills. Like Harmon and Ridley were okay in the drills. It didn't really test extremely well. I still think both would be good football players, good receivers. Ridley, I was starting to sneak up in the round 2, but maybe we're a little more comfortable with round 3 for him. Harmon, comfortable early 2, and Lil Jordan Humphrey, which I didn't think was that bad in the drills. I thought he was okay in the drills. Just a lot slower than we expected. He ran in the low 4.7s first attempt. I remember, I don't know what his official was exactly, but I expect he plays a little faster. He can catch the ball. He was pretty smooth in drills. It's just that 40 time is going to hurt, especially with all these receivers. The tiniest thing will kill you with these receivers because there's so many good ones. So I hate bringing up the losers because I think every guy on here I think will be a good pro. I think majority of these guys, I think all of them except maybe one will get drafted. So it doesn't really change what I think from what they can do on the field. It's just on a combine perspective here. Maybe I expected a little more, just a little bit. That's going to do it, though. We recapped combine day 1. This is 2. We got 3 and 4 to do. And then we got a lot of free agency coverage. Lots of mock drafts, all kinds of NFL coverage on the channel. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. Be much appreciated. Clicking the like button, click the notification button. Also much appreciated. That's going to do it for this one, though. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Goodbye.